Greetings. I'm Desiree Smith, Chief Information Officer in the Department of Information and Public Relations, or GIS. And as always, it's my pleasure to welcome you, our audience, to another one-on-one press conference, press briefing with our Premier and Minister of Finance, Dr. the Honorable Natalio D. Wheatley. And today he'll be updating us on matters related to his recent official trip to London. So without further delay, we'll turn our attention to Premier Wheatley for his updates. Premier.
Thank you, Desiree, and members of the press corps, ladies and gentlemen, people of the Virgin Islands, a pleasant good morning to you. I'm pleased to have another press conference to keep the public informed. My update today is on my official visit to the United Kingdom, which concluded yesterday. First, however, I would like to extend my deepest condolences to the families of the two men who lost their lives, as well as the wider Jas Van Dyke community, as well as our community here on Tortola, with the passing of Sedi Carlwood and Vincent Huggins. I know that you are hurting right now, and I pray that God will ease your pain in this time of grieving. I want to encourage everyone to be as vigilant as possible when driving on our roads. Let us pray that we do not see more car accidents and the loss of life in our beloved Virgin Islands. Turning to my official visit in the United Kingdom, I'm pleased to report that my delegation and I had a successful week of meetings and engagements to advance the economic, political, and environmental interests of the territory. Let me say at the outset that I initiated this visit. I was not asked to come to London by the new Overseas Territories Minister, Lord Goldsmith. In fact, I requested the meeting with Lord Goldsmith because it is important that the Virgin Islands and United Kingdom remain politically engaged on various issues of interest and concern to us. That is what it means to have a mature partnership. You talk and you engage. I was very pleased to have a bilateral meeting with Lord Goldsmith. Our discussion was constructive, warm, and frank. I very much appreciated his great interest in the sustainable development of the BVI. He was very keen on tapping UK support to assist the BVI's efforts to both conserve and sustainably use the marine environment. He also pledged to provide as much UK technical assistance as possible to assist us with continuing the work of reform. I did raise the concern about the Order in Council currently being held in reserve. The minister agreed that we would have a dedicated discussion on this in the very near future. While that issues need to be resolved, I felt Lord Goldsmith was genuine about wanting a stronger partnership between the UK and BVI that fairly considers the interests on both sides. I'm aware that he will travel to the territory next week, and I look forward to seeing him again so we can continue our discussions. I was also very pleased that the UK Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office and the UK Home Office had very good discussions with my delegation on medicinal cannabis, particularly with respect to licensing of medical practitioners in the Virgin Islands to administer medicinal cannabis to patients. We have found a way forward on this aspect of medicinal cannabis, and we are proceeding to put the necessary regimes in place for approvals. I'm grateful to the UK government for their support in this area. In terms of the UK Parliament, we had very successful engagements with UK parliamentarians. A reception at Parliament was graciously hosted by Mr. James Sunderland MP, who serves as the chair of the BVI All-Party Parliamentary Group. My delegation and I interacted with many parliamentarians who have a very keen interest in the BVI. Many of them genuinely want to see the UK be as supportive as possible to the overseas territories. I got very good insight and advice on issues of interest to us, and I believe we are making progress in improving the views of the Virgin Islands in that political institution. I also had a very good bilateral meeting with the Shadow Overseas Territories Minister, Mr. Stephen Doughty. He explained the views of the Labour Party on the overseas territories. I gave him a clear understanding of the Virgin Islands' economic, political, and environmental priorities. He pledged to take these into account in future debates in the House of Commons and in discussions within the Labour Party. Of course, I was very pleased to have a bilateral meeting with the Speaker of the House of Commons, the Honourable Lindsay Hoyle. The Speaker is a champion of the Virgin Islands and overseas territories and was very gracious with his time. We had an excellent discussion on how the Register of Interest works in the UK Parliament. He also provided other very helpful insights that I will discuss with my colleagues in the House of Assembly. On the economic front, my delegation and I had a very productive roundtable discussion with the financial services industry in the UK. The industry was well represented by those firms who also operate out of the Virgin Islands. We were able to update them on legislative developments and plans for the year ahead. The feedback was very good, and together we are committed to ensuring the jurisdiction remains competitive. I also attended a business roundtable with the Caribbean Council to gauge interest in investment in the Virgin Islands in the tourism sector and our airport expansion. I was also able to talk with some of our existing suppliers of certain goods and services. There's keen interest in the Virgin Islands economy and an appetite to invest. My team will be following up with our business partners and those with an interest in investing to help move our economy forward. In terms of environmental partnerships, I had an excellent visit to Southampton, where I signed a memorandum of understanding between the University of Southampton and the Virgin Islands. This is an excellent partnership that will assist the Virgin Islands in researching and documenting our environment and finding solutions to problems such as climate change. The blue economy will also be a major focus. I also attended a meeting with one of our existing partners, the National Oceanographic Center. They presented to me the progress being made on their work in mapping our marine environment. We will soon better know what these assets are and how they can be leveraged to help address the climate problem, particularly using carbon markets that will be beneficial to us in the Virgin Islands. In terms of our educational and cultural cooperation, my delegation and I also visited Hertfordshire County Council, with whom we also have an MOU. We discussed cultural and academic exchange and cooperation on tourism. We'll be following up on this very soon. Regarding engagement with Virgin Islanders in the UK, I was very happy to virtually engage with our students and citizens who attended a town hall and luncheon at BVI House. Fortunately, Permanent Secretary Mrs. Carolyn Stout-Igwe and I were able to participate once our hotel in Antigua and Barbuda was available. We were unable to travel to London due to technical difficulties with our flight that grounded the plane. I listened to the students' concerns and responded to them, and also updated on matters at home. I was very pleased that by the end of the town hall, 3 students had been paired with government agencies for summer internships. Finally, it was with pleasure that we celebrated the 20th anniversary of the BVI London office at the annual Premier's reception. Many of our friends and supporters were present for the occasion, as well as members of the Diplomatic Corps in London. I would like to thank my entire delegation and BVI London office for their support in making my official visit a success. I'm happy to take any questions that the press corps may have. Thank you.
And thank you, Premier, and I just want to beg your pardon as we seek to accommodate all the media that desire to be here for your very important updates. And as you acknowledge your delegation, I just want to say for the information that Permanent Secretary in the Premier's office, Mrs. Carolyn Stout-Igwe, is here present, as well as the representative of the International Affairs Secretary, Ms. Dwynell Davis, is also here in our audience. So, yes, we thank the Premier for his updates, and we now open the floor to our media partners present for any questions related to the updates he presented today.
Good morning, everybody. Ron Grant of 284 Media. Premier, thank you for your update. You mentioned quite a number. I'm going to begin by asking you specifically to the Order in Council. Prior to your visit to the United Kingdom, that was one of the many aspects that you spoke of. Can you provide an update as to whether or not the Order in Council still exists following this meeting, and what progress was made in your discussions to have it removed?
Yes, the Order in Council is still in existence. Of course, for the Order in Council to be removed, that would certainly have to happen as a result of intervention by the Foreign Secretary, who, of course, the Overseas Territory Minister reports to. And certainly we've had a very good discussion with the Overseas Territory Minister. Our discussions have not yet concluded. So certainly when he comes next week, we intend to engage on that particular matter. It's a matter, of course, that I pledged to the people of the Virgin Islands that I would do my part in raising and advocating for. And I continue to believe that this is the right step and the right approach to remove that Order in Council. And so we look forward to discussions with the Minister next week as it pertains to that.
Thank you. You mentioned about the 20th anniversary reception. Of course, this was honoring the BVI London office. I want to speak to any takeaways from this reception that you held. How is the delegation, the BVI delegation, including our students and also members of the BVI House, how are they doing?
Oh, they're doing very well. And we had a very, I would say, engaging reception. Many of our partners were there and persons who we've interacted with over the years. This would include persons who are parliamentarians, persons who the office has a direct relationship with in terms of persons who rent the office, persons who we use their services, etc. The diplomatic corps was very engaged. We had representatives from as far as Haiti to the Republic of China to throughout CARICOM. Many different countries came and supported, and I actually haven't attended a reception like that for the first time. Was quite even surprised at the breadth of our relationships that we've established there in the United Kingdom, and the great potential for support for the BVI moving forward on matters of interest.
You touched on medical cannabis, of course, having some conversations. Can you elaborate more on what the way forward means and perhaps a timeline or time frame for this?
Well, certainly, having just had that very positive meeting with the Home Office, I intend to, as soon as possible, engage with the Governor's Office as well as my cabinet colleagues as it pertains to how we approach legislation moving forward. Of course, as you know, there was the Cannabis Licensing Act that was due for assent. We'll have discussions as to whether that's the way that we want to go. Right now, because we have legislation on our books that allows the Minister for Health to be able to create regulations that will essentially allow cannabis to be legally administered in the BVI. That presently exists. So we're going to have some discussions with the Governor's Office. We had a very good discussion on that same topic with the Home Office, and they were very supportive. They're interested in ensuring that we have the expertise and we have the regime in place to ensure that we can do so in a responsible manner. And that's something that we're committed to as well, because, of course, we know that any substance can be abused, and it's important that you have structures and regimes in place to ensure that that abuse doesn't take place here in the Virgin Islands, to make sure that access to drugs is controlled and regulated properly.
To my final question, Premier, the Government Information Services recently sent out a press release, of course, in relation to a local media house. Governor Berry, really labeling the information misleading as you have returned safely from your trip, and the GIS Information Office shared that this is the platform. Can you at least, if there is any, give clarification to if any incidents might have taken place?
Well, as I said in my statement, we had a flight due to leave Antigua for the United Kingdom. I think it was somewhere around 8:40 was supposed to leave. But very close to midnight, the flight still had not taken off. We actually had boarded the plane. We had to deplane. And at that point, of course, it was clear that the plane would not be taken off. Immediately, of course, the officials from Virgin Atlantic said that we're going to try our best, and officials from the airport, to find accommodations for you. Of course, the accommodations at that time, because I believe there were maybe 2 or 3 other flights that got into the same situation, and all the hotels were booked. So we were advised just to wait in the airport until a hotel became available. When the hotel became available, we went to the hotel, and then we were able to engage the BVI London office through a virtual call. And of course, later in that day, we were able to catch our plane and go to the United Kingdom. Let me just say, without unequivocally and without a shadow of a doubt, I did not sleep on the floor of the airport. And I think it's, again, reckless, it's inaccurate, and it's misleading. And the story also, I would say, unfairly has a negative focus on my support team. Let me just recognize the excellent support that I got from my permanent secretary, Mrs. Carolyn Stout Igwe, Ms. Donnell Davies, who is overseeing the International Affairs Secretariat right now, and all the other team and the efforts that they made to make sure I was comfortable as possible and everything went smoothly. The entire trip went very smoothly. Of course, that incident was unavoidable, and we made the best out of the situation that existed. And I'm grateful for the concern that persons have shared, receiving that report. But certainly that report should be discarded. The one from Guava Berry Media should be discarded because it's inaccurate and misleading.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, 284. We have also ZBVI represented. We have BVI Beacon, and we have JTV. Please.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Premier. Just to follow up on your report as it relates to the order in council, you did say there were diplomats from Africa, China, elsewhere. Did they show any solidarity to this issue?
We didn't have any direct discussions about the order in council with anyone from those areas, but we've had great support as it pertains to the order in council from our CARICOM colleagues, and many of their high commissioners were present and remain committed and helpful. And I can go beyond that. We've had many parliamentarians, and this, I think, is really the key, because of course, we have a Minister for Overseas Territories. He's in the House of Lords. And we also have a Foreign Secretary, of course. They, too, are parliamentarians. They have colleagues. They have persons in their own party. They have persons who are their peers. And we want to make sure that we have as many persons as possible in Parliament and even outside of Parliament who are supportive of democracy in the Virgin Islands, who believe in democracy and having positive engagement as the right approach moving forward for the overseas territories. So we believe we've made our case to the persons the relevant persons and persons who have the most influence over a particular matter like that. And we're going to continue to advocate because we believe that's the right approach.
Okay. And to continue further, you also mentioned about, as it relates to the marijuana legislation, the Minister of Health having certain authority. Could you direct us directly where that is and what it entails?
That's in the Drugs and Prevention of Misuse Act. I forget the exact section, but I can get the section to you. But right now, the legislation gives authority to make any substance that's restricted on the schedule legal with the proper regulations in place. And these regulations must adhere to the international conventions as it pertains to drug use. These include the 1961 Convention on Narcotics, the 1978 Convention on Psychotropic Substances, and there may be one or two other conventions which are relevant. So once you're in conformity with those conventions, it shouldn't be a problem.
Okay. What is the primary focus of the visit of Mr. Goldsmith?
Mr. Goldsmith, as you would know, and the minister before him, they were scheduled to have a visit to the BVI before. I forget the name of the minister who was appointed before. He was actually on his way to the BVI. And actually, of course, we know the political situation in the United Kingdom at the time, so he didn't proceed with his visit here. So really, it's just to be able to engage with the overseas territories. He's going to be going to other overseas territories as well. And it's customary, I would say, when you have a minister of the overseas territories, that they have an official visit, and we can engage on discussions of matters of mutual interest. Of course, COI reform will be among them, but also the environment, also recovery from hurricanes, also support for our economy, etc.
You mentioned briefly about national security in your opening statement. To what extent that was discussed while you were overseas, and given the fact also that there is a great concern that this was not an area that was keenly looked at during the Commission of Inquiry?
Can you be a little more specific when you say national security wasn't looked at with the Commission of Inquiry?
Was not deeply looked at, was not deeply investigated. There's that concern that much did not come out of the Commission of Inquiry as it relates to national security.
Well, actually, quite a bit came out as it pertains to national security. That's an area that falls under the governor, of course. I'm in the National Security Council. But there was a recommendation that had to do with looking at how the law enforcement agencies work together. Of course, there were recommendations as it pertains to investigations into customs, etc. There were a number of recommendations that had to do with law and justice, certain things that had to do with that would affect directly the Director of Public Prosecution's office in terms of legislation that was recommended in the Commission of Inquiry. So I would say yes, the Commission of Inquiry did take a good look at law enforcement, and many of those reviews should be ready for the public to view shortly. And these reviews will be made public, and everybody will have an opportunity to see what they say about law enforcement. But, we have a keen focus on ensuring that the different law enforcement agencies work together collaboratively. That's something that came up in the Commission of Inquiry. So that started with a memorandum of understanding as it pertains to providing security at the ports, where the immigration, where the customs, and where the police, Royal Vigilance Police Force, are working together.
Was that area a focus during your visit?
No, that wasn't necessarily a focus. That's more of a focus between the governor and myself and the National Security Council, as well as Cabinet.
Okay. And finally, from me, just for the sake of clarity and in putting the issue to rest in all aspects, did you at any time, probably jokingly, made mention of having to sleep at the airport or in a plane while you were on that trip?
Well, let me just say, in between time when we got off the plane and when we got to the hotel, we were in the airport for a number of hours. Okay? And I think this is customary when persons are in hotels. You in the airport for hours. I could have dozed off on a bench, but under no circumstances whatsoever did I sleep on the floor. But in between time when you're waiting to go to the hotel, if I want to lean my head back while I'm waiting, is there a challenge with that? I don't think so. But this whole idea that you want to sleep on the floor, I think is nonsense.
Thank you, Premier.
Premier, morning.
Yeah, no.
I'm sorry to be a bit late. Premier
Your name?
Zan Lewis, ZBV Radio. I didn't get the beginning of your speech now. Did you at any time when you were speaking mention anything about the Ordering Council?
Yes, I did.
How serious, sir, was this Ordering Council on your trip? How great a priority it was? Because I'm asking you that, the reason being, when you spoke at the last press conference, it
Yes.
was not in your opening speech. You were questioned about it.
Okay.
So that's why I asked you, how serious was it on this trip?
No, it was a great priority.
It was a great priority.
Yes.
And you think it was given great priority from this trip?
Well, the good thing about it is we started the discussions, and the discussions continue. So the discussions have not concluded. We have the opportunity to continue those discussions, to have full engagement on it, and then for the minister to have all the relevant information that he's interested in. And then, of course, on their side, they'll have to make a decision.
So you had direct conversation with the UK on the issue?
Yes.
Premier, some time ago when we spoke, before I go there, what did you, sir, presented to the UK on this issue? I believe, I may be wrong, I believe you would have approached them before on the Ordering Council to have it removed. I'm right?
No, I've never engaged the Overseas Territories Minister on it. Of course, the last engagement we had about Order and Council, that would have been with the former Minister Amanda Millen. And of course, she made it very clear, of course, why they chose to do that. I think since then, we've shown a great commitment to the reforms. It may have been premature to engage on that before, making such a strong commitment to the reforms, letting them know that we're serious about the question of reform, and really having an Order in Council is not the right way to encourage and to engage further engagement.
But are you carrying the views of the people with you, sir? When you discuss in the Ordering Council, are you carrying the views of the people? Yes, I understand you speaking about the reforms, but are you letting the UK people know what the people at the BVI are saying on this issue?
Absolutely.
What message you told them this time that why you want to remove? Because I'm getting the impression you may not be persuasive enough and they're not taking you seriously. I'm wrong, all right?
No, I would say that you're wrong as it pertains to that. And I would say don't prejudge the outcome of the meetings. As I said, the meetings are ongoing. Let's at least see how the meetings go before we judge whether I'm effective or persuasive or not. And it's not just a matter of being persuasive. It's a matter of showing a real commitment to the partnership, a real commitment to transparency, accountability, adherence to the rule of law. All of those things make a difference in terms of us making a case. And of course, the voice of the people of the Virgin Islands is of paramount importance in terms of this particular issue.
You're gaining confidence from your discussions that it will be removed, or you're confident it will? What sort of response?
I'm confident that we're doing all that we can to have it removed. Of course, ultimately, the decision is up to the Foreign Secretary. But we believe that we are engaging in the right way, positively, and we'll give them every reason why it should be removed. And we're going to continue to let them know how important an issue it is to the people of the Virgin Islands.
Finally, Premier, you had a lot of discussions, you had a lot of receptions, you had a lot of meetings, and you said that is going to continue. What would you say you came back with from a UK trip that, yes, we got this, or we got something positive, instead of saying that you're going to continue discussions? What you came back with to say, yes, this was a major achievement?
Oh, I would say a major achievement has to do with that memorandum with Southampton. That's major. It has benefits for our students. It also has benefits for the research that we want to take place here in the Virgin Islands. The meeting with the National Oceanographic Center, it was an amazing meeting, and we will soon be presented with the data from the environmental mapping. And that has huge implications for us because I'm not sure how familiar persons in the Virgin Islands are with carbon markets. But carbon markets basically, essentially, we have carbon emissions in the world. And there are companies who want to be able to offset their carbon emissions. And so they're willing to fund projects that will help to preserve environment and do other types of environmental projects. And those have an economic value. For instance, let's take the Amazon. For instance, some persons may see the economic value in cutting down the rainforest in the Amazon. But what we have now is a structure where persons can recognize the economic value of preserving the Amazon and will actually pay money to the government and to the people of the country to preserve it as opposed to cutting it down. And we have environmental assets here. We have coral reefs, we have seagrass, we have the biodiversity beneath the sea. All of those things have an economic value. And when you map those assets, you have the opportunity to approach companies like a Microsoft or a Google and say, this is a project that you can help us with. And this can help us to offset your own carbon emissions. Even while we're seeking to reduce all the carbon emissions, with the carbon emissions that we're emitting now, we have the opportunity to offset them. And the support that we're getting from the minister in terms of our efforts to be a low carbon or even zero carbon economy, I think that was huge.
Let me try this last one. Sir, you talk about the support is necessary as regards the Ordering Council. When the Foreign Secretary comes to the BVI,
the Overseas Territory Minister.
Overseas Territory comes to the BVI. Is it a possibility if you may include the leader of the opposition because of his seniority or probably members of the opposition to be involved in the discussions with you because of the importance of having this Ordering Council removed?
I'll have to be corrected if I'm wrong, but I believe that the minister will be engaging with members of the House of Assembly, including the leader of the opposition. But I'll have to double check on that. But I'm pretty sure that he's going to be engaging with other parliamentarians as well.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, ZDVI. Any other agencies have questions for the Premier?
Can I have one that is not related to this directly, please?
Premier, will you
Go ahead.
receive
Go ahead.
that? Thank you. One more.
Thank you so much for accommodating, Madam Moderator. Premier, this one relates to what's happening with sister islands, especially from the aspect of healthcare and that of ports. Just recently, I was on Anegada. I mean, I've been to Anegada for so many times, but this one touched me a little bit, having observed firsthand, noting while it was a personal choice of a family to transport one of their the eldest person on Anegada to Tortola, I watched with pain him having to sit on that ferry, a very uncomfortable ferry where the seating does not accommodate for a 94-year-old man to be able to either elevate his leg or lie back a little for a trip that went for almost 2 hours. To see that man foot swell from just a tad bit to a whole lot, it was painful for me as an individual. And apart from it not being one that required a medevac because of a medical emergency, the comfortability of persons traveling for various reasons from those sister islands to the mainland continues to be of serious concern. What is being done to expedite issues to make sure that they have the basic necessities? Now, we remember there was also the move to make sure that there is daily commute into and out of Anegada. That is no longer so. Some days you hear it's frequent, other days it's not. What really is going on with this?
Well, in terms of frequent ferry access, you'll soon be seeing a request for proposal go out because, of course, previously we had arrangements where we would have subsidies for travel between Anegada and Tortola, which is necessary because of this population of Anegada and our responsibility to ensure that they have access to all the services being provided on the main island of Tortola. Okay, so that's important to us. And in the past, of course, some of these things have not necessarily been done in alignment with established procurement processes. So you should see a request for proposal go out soon for that. And besides that, I assume you're speaking about like access to air travel and things like that. The best
And
person to
comfortable ferry, even if it's
comfortable ferry.
Yes.
Well, of course, I think the Minister for Ports and the Minister of Health would be the best persons to speak about the specific plans moving forward as it pertains to those things. And I remain very supportive because, of course, I believe that no matter where you are in the Virgin Islands, you need access to certain types of government services. And as you know, of course, if you have a medical issue, you deserve to be able to get as fast and efficient travel as possible to our medical services and to improve the standard of medical services in the sister islands as well.
Okay, and as it relates to port, what is being done to make sure that port is developed over there? Getting the opportunity to go to the top floor of a vessel and look down to see what are the constraints that people face there, reasons why you can hear ever so often, this is missing, this piece of cargo is missing, and the safety of persons using those docks. What is being done to develop docks there?
Well, I would say it's important enough for me to ask my Minister for Ports to perhaps maybe report to the public on it. You know, I wouldn't want to give any information that's not completely accurate or certainly doesn't. I don't have all the information at my disposal because that's not under my portfolio. But of course, the Minister of Ports is well equipped to be able to address that.
Okay, is it possible for the next press conference that you're having that we have the Minister of Health here to answer some questions?
I can make the request. I can make the request to the Minister of Health.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Premier, you can just assume ZBVI. Were you willing
Yes,
to?
yes.
Okay, Premier. There
We're
you go.
good friends
Thank you.
and go right ahead.
Remember, I was here sometime you have to make up.
Yes.
Premier, a statement was made recently by your health minister about how he was disturbed and annoyed about certain discussions in Standing Finance. When he was asked whose side he on, he was asked that whose side he's on when he was speaking about asking for some things, I don't know, from his district, the 8th district. He said while he was debating the budget that annoyed him. And he made it known to you that he's not a member of your crew. He's just there as a part of the national unity government to assist the people, but he is not in your crew. How you felt with such a statement? He's not with you, but he's just there for helping the people, and he's not associating with the government, and he said he needs you as his government colleague to understand that.
Well, let me first say I'm not quite sure what statements you're referring to, and I haven't listened to them, so I don't want to respond to anything that I haven't properly listened to. But let me just say, as it pertains to Minister Penn, he is a part of the National Democratic Party. We also have Minister Turnbull, who's a part of the Progressive Virgin Islands movement, and they're in a coalition with the Virgin Islands Party. And I've been appreciative of how we've been able to work together in a crisis situation to help to stabilize the Virgin Islands and to save our democracy. And I'll continue to do all I can to work with those two ministers and the other, also Minister Vanterpool, House of Assembly member Vanterpool, who's a member of the 4th District, who's a part of the unity government, and all other parties concerned in the best interest of the people of the Virgin Islands. I think we have to put country above self and country above party. And that's my particular approach. We know that it's approaching time for us to have elections, and parties will put forward a slate of candidates, and that's democracy. People have the right to choose, and people have the right to put themselves forward to lead. And that's a democratic process.
So you have no problem with the statement?
I respect the democratic process.
So you have no problem with the statement?
Well, I would have to listen to the statement.
One last one, please. Premier, you're the 7th district representative. And I believe, though I haven't heard much of you, still the Minister of Agriculture.
Yes, sir.
Correct?
Yes, sir.
Though we don't hear much about that.
Right.
The Minister for Natural Resources, some time ago in the House of Assembly, I hope you heard this one. The House of Assembly mentioned about the squatting that's taken on out at Parakeeta Bay.
Right.
And he said he don't know how it's been tolerated by government, and
Yeah.
it needs to be adjusted, right? And something needs to be done. And even if you have to call in the police to address that, because people are squatting the bill houses when the lands are given to them to farm.
Yeah.
You as Agriculture Minister, you as the 7th District Representative, are you willing, sir, to go along with the Natural Resources Minister to deal with that problem?
Well, we're on the same page, and I have to say to you that we've already been working on the issue together. Some months ago, perhaps my PSC girl will remind me how long ago it was, but we put a committee in place to manage the lands at Parakeeta Bay. And one of the tasks I gave them was being able to come up with standard leases for everybody who are on Parakeeta Bay, and everybody who has a standard lease for land. They have to adhere to the conditions of that lease. And one of those conditions is that it has to be used for agricultural purposes. No squatting whatsoever will be tolerated. Now, I have to admit to you, Zan, it's gone a lot more slowly than I would like. And the PS is here, she can tell you, oftentimes I'm pulling out hair that I don't have, wondering why it can't go more quickly. But I'm satisfied that we're moving in the right direction. We had a meeting with the committee, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, and they updated me on their progress, and I made it clear in no certain terms that I need that standard lease, and I need everybody who's on Parakeeta Bay to be on a lease, because we have to be accountable in terms of how we use the precious resource of land, especially given the fact that we have a scarcity of flat land in the Virgin Islands, and food security is a priority for us. So that land has to be optimized or given optimal use for agricultural purposes, not for any other purpose.
So, on non-certain terms, the squatters have to be removed. They must move.
They have to be removed. Absolutely.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you for your question.
I think that brings us to the end of your press briefing and the question and answer. Premier, we thank you so much for your time and making sure the public is updated on all your current matters and entertaining the questions from our media partners, who we also want to thank for being here. And we want to thank the audience by radio on Facebook, wherever you're tuned in, for your attendance and attention. As always, we encourage you to visit our website at bvi.gov.vg for all your timely and accurate information on government. Also, like and follow us on Facebook and Twitter at BVI Government, and on Instagram at GISBVI. I'm Desiree Smith. Thank you for joining us, and have a good rest of the day.